I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good morning, Jason Middleton. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful morning?
Beautiful morning where you are. I'm a little bit behind you, I think. It's still dark and it's a little smoky here because of the fires we have in Northern California. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I was hearing about that last night. Hope all works out well with that, Jason. Please do tell me, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting?
Well, I think it's one of two things. One is I have a podcast and a show on the air here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And also, I think I keyworded my LinkedIn profile well, because I think you found me through LinkedIn.
Yeah. I think it was podcast host, and Technomics came up, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's amazing what you're doing there. You host that program, or is it a panel model? Because the ones I listened to, you introduced the podcast and then someone else hosted it. Is that accurate, or do you jump in a bit down later in the show?
Well, it is a recorded and edited show, right? So I do that during the week while I'm on the air on the morning shows for 3 stations Monday through Friday. I squeeze in my show Techonomics to air on the weekends, and so I record my conversations over the phone, usually sometimes in studio with my guests, and then what I do is I script in and then I script out.
Wow.
And then I bookend it that way so that we have an organic conversation in the middle, and then it's in and out. In case I miss anything during the conversation, that gives me a chance to reference any links or any online resources that went into the sourcing for the story.
Yeah, sounds great. Wow. You're a veteran. So who did you learn the skill from? The skill of, well, you've just taken it up a notch from basic conversation to enhanced conversations, right? So that the public can access better information. Who did you learn that skill from?
I have to say that I think I learned it first from Johnny Carson, because my grandmother would let me stay up late on Friday nights and watch Johnny Carson do his late night talk show. And I just was enthralled with that. I think I was 8 years old, maybe 9 years old, and I would grab a radio. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but the boom boxes that had like 8D batteries and little tiny condenser microphone on the side of it. And I would create my own fake talk shows where I would ask myself questions, and I would try to change my voice and then answer those questions a little bit, and record it onto a cassette tape. But honestly, I don't know if anybody taught me that. I always wanted to know more. I have an educational curiosity, so maybe this is just the lowest common denominator way to get more information.
Yeah, well, it is fascinating what we know, when we know it, and what we do with what we know. Tell me, in spite of the challenges that do occur, because there are challenges, right, all through the journey, why you will continue to repeat this skill?
Again, I think I go back to my educational curiosity. I've been telling stories on a professional level since I was about 18, my first year at university. I had my first radio show. I covered my first story, and since then, I've done radio through college, and then towards the end of college, I became the editor of the newspaper at the college. And then from there, I just went into newspapers. Then I did magazines. Then I did online. Then I did television. And now I'm back to radio, which is weird. I mean, it's almost been 30 years since my first reported story, and I've returned to the format that I started at. But in between, I did a whole bunch of other things for NBC, LA.com, a couple of newspapers, including in Houston and in Pennsylvania. And so I just keep wanting to tell stories. I'm not sure exactly why that is, honestly. I kind of do, if I can just indulge just a second, because I wanted a portable skill, because I was in a poor part of West Virginia, and I didn't see much opportunity there. And I thought that if I had a portable skill, like a storytelling skill, that I could take it almost anywhere and find work. Maybe not great work. It doesn't pay great, but at least I could survive and keep myself and my mind entertained. It's kind of the same reason like my mom remains a Catholic, is because she says that wherever she goes in the world, she will probably always be able to find a Catholic parish and feel welcomed. And it's the same kind of thing with my skill set. I could go and take it to any city, and I've lived in about, I believe, 8 different markets at this point. And if you count the Bay Area, I think it's 9.
Wow. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a great plan. Tell me one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years.
That's a very good question, because there are a lot of things other than the show, this is my second show at this radio station over those last 3 years. I'd have to say that I've been consistently getting better at being a father. I've really dedicated myself to that. We have one child, and I know that may come up later in our conversation, but it's an impactful thing for me, because before I met my present wife, I was trying to adopt a child on my own as a single father. And I don't know if you know that, but it's very difficult to do.
I would imagine.
It is. It got to the point where I was basically offered a very disgusting deal where I could pay money and have a child. And I said, first of all, I reported that to the authorities, but at the same time, I thought that maybe I should just go about it the other way. I had been recently divorced. I got married very young, and we divorced amicably, but I knew I wanted to have a daughter. I knew I wanted to have a single child, and I just wasn't really ready for a relationship. So I guess I tried to put things maybe a little bit out of order. But luckily, I learned that life lesson, and then I met my wife, and now we have that one child. So I've been trying to focus on just being that father figure.
How does it make you feel?
Oh, it's wonderful. I've never done anything. It changes your complete worldview. I do not know if you have children or not.
I do. I have 2 children.
Yeah, so I guess it's transformative, isn't it?
It is.
Once you have that responsibility. And in the United States, it's not easy for you to bond with your child because you have to go back to work so quickly. I took 3 months of unpaid leave, stayed home, and my wife went back to work.
Wow.
She worked at a movie studio, so she went back to work, and I stayed home with the baby for the first 3 months. And I do not regret a moment of that.
Before I ask you to suggest to someone, it's intriguing that when you were speaking of your divorce, you said something like it was, and the entire signal dropped, I'm guessing, and it sounded like blah.
Oh.
But that's going to be fun to leave right there, right? I'll leave that there.
A happy accident. That's great editing.
Let's suggest to someone out there who may feel as though they are getting it wrong, why they can do what you do by really, it seems as though you clean up pretty well.
I think perseverance comes with that. And I do think that, broadening your horizons, one of the reasons I like to keep telling these stories is because I am not allowed to have confirmation bias. I purposely have guests on and purposely, like you, have conversations with different people so that my opinion doesn't become some kind of silo.
Yeah.
And so I feel I'm more open to other people's points of view. And I think that being a catalyst for a conversation is almost as important as what is happening during that conversation. And I believe, again, like you, that it's an important skill that is not necessarily being lost, but the more digital our lives become and the more screen-oriented our lives become, I believe that the oral and the vocal are going to become even more important and maybe even more rare, but that doesn't mean they need to stop, and that doesn't mean the volume needs to go down.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, totally agree. Well, amazing audience, we are live here right now with an amazing individual, Jason Middleton. He is the podcast host of Technomics. Do check that out. Jason, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Jason, what is your earliest childhood memory?
That's a great scene set, by the way. I haven't been to the Caribbean in about 10 years. My first memory is I was playing Mother May I in the backyard of my childhood home with my mother. And the reason I can remember that is because my mother had put it was not a nice home, but in the back, on the 3 steps that went out the back door, there were brand new AstroTurf, the fake green grass.
Yeah.
And she was sitting on that, and I was on the far end of the yard by our redwood fence and playing Mother May I. I don't know why I remember that, but it's the one true one. I think I can remember other things that were triggered by photographs, but that was my first memory.
What is Mother May I?
Mother May I is a very odd game that I wonder if my mother didn't make up in retrospect, because it basically teaches obedience to the mother. So you say, "Mother, may I?" And she says, "Yes, you may." And I say, "Mother, may I? Can I take 12 jumping jacks towards you?"
Interesting.
And she says, "Mother, may I?" Right. I think she made it up as a controlling
it's like
device.
Simon Says, right? But you're asking. It's a switch. Yeah. How old do you think you were?
I think I was about 4, maybe 4.5. Yeah.
Why do you think this memory is so clear?
I honestly don't know. My mother is still alive, and we still talk all the time. And maybe it was because I don't think that her life was great at that time. And I think that she and I bonded because she didn't have anybody else to bond with at that time. So I'm pretty sure I got a lot of attention when I was young.
That's fascinating. Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Oh, yes, please do.
I love the fact that there is truth in the mix of what can seem true. That being the turf grass, right? The astrograss, right? AstroTurf. And that being the thing that looks real, right? But isn't real. But more so, the fact of the matter that your mother is attempting, I think, to teach you that you can ask the questions that will get you forward in life, which then is the truth. The truth.
That is an incredible silver thread that you were able to pull out of that anecdote.
You are welcome.
That may be very, very, very true. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Let's see, 1282. Oh, I know. I bought my first album with my own money, and it was Harry Nilsson. And I think the album actually came out in the late 70s, but I bought it in 82 at a yard sale. And the favorite song was Lime and the Coconut.
Oh, there we go.
Do you remember that song?
I do.
Lime and the coconut. You put that one. Yeah.
You know, in the beginning of your podcast, there's a bit of music, right? Anyway, I won't go there. Or did it have like a reggae type finish, but kind of ironed out reggae? Is it?
Yes, it was actually. I changed the music for every week's show as to my moods for the week, and then I post those links on my Facebook page because I find that I just think it's more fun that way. I get to choose my own music beds. It's one of the few things I have left that I do that my producer doesn't do.
Love it. Yeah, it's like, two different extremes, right? Lime and coconut. Yeah, love it.
Right. Totally, right?
Yeah, right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to go pretty fast here, Jason. Jason, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
My daughter seems to be wanting to be a storyteller. She's already writing her own books and stories. She's 8 years old, and I got her a laptop a year ago.
Oh, sweet. Well, you said you're married. Your daughter is 8. Do you believe in God?
I do not believe in.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do indeed, especially this time of year during the baseball playoffs. We're all over the country, but we all text each other during the games because we all have different teams in the hunt for the World Series.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I do not.
All right. And what about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
It is more than 8, mostly because of my job.
Jason, after 1,001 conversations, I came up with a workbook. Sometimes I like to believe it came up with me. But the name of the workbook is yours, your own unique, real self. Connected to that is your own unique, real statement, your mission. If you were to share with us your own unique, real statement, something that represents Jason Middleton, what would you say that is?
I think we can all do better, and I try every day.
Love it. Jason Middleton, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I have to say that I love your project, and I loved getting the note from you on LinkedIn, and I will be following these conversations moving forward. Thank you for letting them into my life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, my friend. Jason Middleton, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.